Push the button. Push the button, Scruggs. Here we go. It's really for real now. We're starting this.
Welcome to the Education, Career, and Beyond podcast. We've combined life experience with young adult drive and ambition. Are you just starting to college plan? Did you finish your education and wonder, now what? Join us in this lively discussion about the topics you need to know to create the next stage of your life's dreams, careers, finances, education, and more. Brought to you by Voice for Heroes 501c3.
A little rougher start for us today. I know when to fire myself. Actually, no, today's topic is leadership, and being a good leader is admitting when you make mistakes and knowing how to correct. So my leadership skill today is saying, yes, I made a mistake, didn't click the button, but here we are, as always, the Education, Career, and Beyond podcast. So great to have all of you with us again. And as I just mentioned, today's topic is leadership with our incredible guest, Dr. Kevin Gazzara. Now, he has been everything from a rock and jazz drummer, which I can't wait to speak to you about, the musician in me is ready for that one. He has been a video producer. He's been in the corporate world and then spent the last 10, 15 years as an entrepreneur as well, really now understanding the full scope of leadership, which I think is perfect for all of our young adult audience here, because that's such a key component in life. And so we're going to have a powerful discussion. As always, we have Capri with us at Purdue University, and we miss Ed. He is still out this week, but we've got this. Thank you so much for being with us. Hello, Dr. Kevin.
Thanks for having me on the show, Amy and Capri. Glad to be here.
Nothing like a little slow start there to get this kicked off with, but your background, I'm really excited because we're going to talk about the things that you've done, and we also have a couple books we're going to reference, and I know you have a really, really wonderful gift for us today as well. But you have an incredible background. I identify with that because I joke about how I have all these careers that meld into one and have made me who I am, and I can see that you have that same component and joy. As you can see, if you're watching this, you can see he is still a happy person. So let's dive into your background and share with us a little bit what led you to us today.
Yeah, definitely a happy person, because I believe that anything is possible. I think it started from my parents. I was born and raised in Levittown, Pennsylvania, very cookie cutter environment. Had the standard Leave It to Beaver. For those, probably people don't even know what the hell that is.
I do.
I know what that is.
It's the standard, mom and dad. Mom stayed home. Dad went to work with the government every morning in a carpool. Had the two kids and the dog and the station wagon, and everybody got along together. And it was a really great kind of life starting out. And one of the things that my parents always told me was, which I didn't realize that every parent didn't tell their kids this until later on in my life, was that anything that anyone else can do, so can you. And that was their belief. You may not be able to do it like Michael Jordan, but you can try it, and you can do it. There's no reason you can't do it. So that's something I always believed, which I think helps set my life up and my life for my sister. So born and raised in Pennsylvania, I've spent 30 years in the corporate world, did my undergraduate work in a dual degree in engineering and business, did my MBA, and then went off when I was 43, 44, and did my doctorate in organizational leadership, because I spent 18 years at Intel. And when I was at Intel managing, I found the value of if you can be a great manager and a great leader, what you can accomplish more so than just becoming better yourself. So I kind of took that up as my life passion, and I've spent the last 25 plus years trying to do that. And then I've been a professor at 6 different universities as well, teaching leadership at the undergrad, grad, and the doctoral level. And it's so it's been it hasn't been a straight line career, but it's what I think the thing that I found, and what I would say to the people, to the audience listening, is find the things that you love. I went at early age, at the age of 12, 13, I found out that my love was playing drums, right? So I, born and raised on Led Zeppelin and, Beatles and everything like that. And I found I loved doing that. And, having the idea of being a famous rock drummer or whatever was kind of always in my mind. fortunately, I had great mentors and coaches along the way, both from friends and neighbors. And, my dad, of course, was my real mentor. And he basically said, find things that you love to do. It doesn't have to be one thing, And when I looked at kind of becoming a professional musician, I studied all through high school, and I had to make a decision in junior year of, was it senior year of high school. I had to make a decision. Do you go into engineering school or do I go to music school? And two very different choices. And I was studying with a guy by the name of Paul Patterson, and Paul is this amazing drummer in Philadelphia. He used to take the train, 40 miles into the city every Saturday morning to study with this great guy. I studied with Paul, and he wasn't only a teacher, but he was a mentor. And I went in the morning of Halloween for my normal lesson, and it was at Music City Studio in Center City, Philadelphia. And his wife called the studio and said, "Hey, Paul won't be in today. He had a heart attack and died this morning."
Oh.
So Paul was 52, and I took the train home and got home and filled out my engineering applications. What I realized was, was that I wanted a life that I had some control over, and I could see Paul's life. He had a great life. I mean, he was famous. Everyone knew him, but he would work from 10 to 2 in the morning, sleep 4 hours, get up and teach from 10 to 6. He'd grab a sandwich, go off to his next gig. And I just saw this, and I realized you have to make decisions around what you want to do with your life. So I wanted a family, I wanted kids, I wanted, a house. I wanted the flexibility to not be constrained about money. And what I recognized was I also had a passion for technology. I'm a nerd for sure. So I used to do all kinds of crazy stuff, like taking cars apart and radios and TVs and everything. I put them back together, and my parents encouraged it, right? Most of the time, there were always lots of extra parts left over. But I was always inquisitive about that. So what I realized is, hey, I can probably make a good salary, something I'm interested in, maybe not on the same level as being a famous rock drummer, but I could still play. I could still do the stuff that I love to do on the weekends. And that's what I worked myself through college, was I would stay at college and then come home on the weekends and play with a after hours club band to make enough money to pay for college, and did that for 5 years. And it was great, So I think one of the messages I would tell anyone listening, any of the students, is if you have something you really love, you want to be realistic about it, to say, is this something that will support the types of things that I want to do in the future? And then if not, you want to get creative. Best way is to find someone that you admire that's kind of created that kind of life for you, and then just go ask them. Say, can you mentor me? Can you coach me? I've got questions for you. How did you get here? And tap into that. And that's kind of my underlying message here. And life has been fantastic. It hasn't been a straight linear line that most of us hope for, but it certainly has been one that I can apply all my different talents and interests together.
I love that, Dr. Kevin, because I don't think anyone I've met has a straight linear line, honestly. Everybody has that story where at the last minute a fork in the road, or it went this way or that way. And, we set those goals and intentions, but a lot of times life opens up new possibilities or opportunities. And sometimes what we think is a mistake or a failure is actually the creation of that new opportunity. And you've definitely given such an example about really identifying what you needed and where you were supposed to be. I know Capri probably has a lot of questions, and she did her homework on this interview as well. So I'm going to let her kick it off, and I'm going to stop now.
Well, I don't want to take it too far away from drumming just quite yet, because you said that you did that you were you do still drum and play in a band?
I do. I don't have a band at the moment. Right. I do have an electronic set here. And I get to play that on the set. And are you hearing the gardeners have it?
Yes, it's okay.
Can you hear them?
Yes, it's okay.
Can you give me, I'm going to just Take 10 seconds and
Take
shut the
it,
window.
take it.
Of course.
Oh, Capri, I love it. We didn't realize that he had worked for so many universities as well.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
really
Yes.
awesome. I can't
Definitely
wait to
talk
ask him
that
about
later.
some of those experiences. That was a fun surprise with that.
Leadership is all about going with the flow and
Yes.
adjusting to things that are unexpected. Yeah. So
Yes. Oh, I do have a question about that because you have done so much work with leadership. I was just blown away when I was reading through like your resume and everything that you've been a part of. And a big thing that you've kind of touched on a little bit was how you've changed careers
mhm.
multiple times. How has that made you a better leader?
Well, I think it's given me a breadth of different, things that I can tap into. And one of my beliefs is that everything is connected. A lot of people think,
Mhm.
you have your personal life, you have your professional life, you have your family life, you have your interests, and all of those are separate and they should work in little tiny silos. And kind of what I found is that if you can try to connect all of them together and look for that commonality, that you can be successful. So let me start. Let's go back to the drumming, right? So I've always loved music. I've always loved to play music, particularly in jazz, as well as rock music. And I got involved heavily into computers back in the early 80s before anybody else did. So I had music going on, I had computers going on. And then I had the opportunity when I was working for a company called D. Laval to do some promotional videos for them. So also I'm a relatively creative guy, so I learned about video. And then when Intel bought the video technology from RCA Labs in 1988, what they were able to, they were looking for someone that had music knowledge, video knowledge, had an MBA, had an engineering background, knew how to produce videos. It was my job. And back then,
You.
you had to find these positions through the newspaper. They used to post them in the back of the newspaper for people that don't know that. And when I saw the ad, I remember opening it up Sunday night, saw the ad, and it was written for me, and I knew they were going to get 1,000 people to apply for this because a small division, and it was about 30 miles from my home in Princeton, New Jersey. I booked a flight out to San Francisco, and I showed up there. When I landed in San Francisco airport, I called Intel, and I said, "You have an ad that you want to interview me for because I am the person for that position." And I said, "If you don't interview me, I'm going to come and sit in your lobby." And they thought I was a little bit crazy, but the good news was the recruiter said, "Okay, you're on 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Be in the lobby." And he interviewed me, worst interview of my entire life, because he had only hired chip designers and they were looking for a product manager, which I had done for 10 years. And he kept saying, "Well, you haven't done chip design." I said, "Well, I did chip design in school and I understand this." And he said, "Well, you haven't designed chips." So fortunately, he picked up the phone. He called the general manager back in Princeton and said, "Hey, there's a guy that lives there, but he flew out here. I didn't pay for him. He just showed up unannounced, and I interviewed him. He doesn't have any chip design. Here's all the other experience." He says, "Do you want to interview him?" And the general manager said, "Well, of course. He's got everything that we want. So send him some our way." So ultimately, I went back about a week and a half later. The general manager called and said, "Hey, we want to bring you in for an interview." It took about 2 months, and ultimately, I think Intel just hired me so that I would go away and stop bothering them. And ultimately, I got that. I got the position working for Intel, and I spent 18 years there, different management leadership positions. But I found my real passion in 1993 when I went to Intel's Management Leadership Development Program, which is called Managing Through People. And I saw what happens if you spend a high intensity immersion week of really learning the best management leadership tools that you could get. That's what I wanted to be, right? So I moved from kind of that linear piece of where you get to be the manager to the senior manager to the VP to the senior VP to the president. And I removed that and said, "Hey, I need to change my trajectory, and I want to get into developing leaders and let them go and me create this leverage." So that's the way it happened. And fortunately, it's worked out.
Wow. You touched on the fact that you've worked at universities, which I love. And with your leadership and working with young adults, especially the college age student, where have you noticed their mindset is and pertains to leadership? What are some of those maybe misconceptions about leadership you're seeing in this time today, and where you've helped them really see it in its full scope?
Yeah, I mean, leadership, we use what we would call a servant leader kind of model, right? Where we are there to help others. That you really, I mean, true leadership is where you're leading through people, right? That you're developing others. The best leaders develop more leaders, and there's a lot of misconceptions about leadership. They think of the command and control, and that's really not leadership, right? Leadership is one, where you're going, and two, you're able to persuade others to come with you. And you can look at some people that have been able to do that. The real question is if that particular individual goes away, do you still continue? And the answer quite often with many of the authoritarian types of leaders, that that doesn't happen, right? And that's really more of extreme management than leadership. So if I always felt like if I could develop my staff, when I got a new staff member, whether it was internal or external, I had two things that they got from me the very first time that they met me when they showed up at the office. I said, there's two things you need to remember. The first thing is, I don't want you working for me 18 months from now. So I want you to be thinking about what's next. And that starts today. Wow. And the second thing is, you need to be thinking at the next level up, right? So that you're acting as if you were in that position. So when you get the opportunity, it'll be no big deal to transition. So you need to take that leadership mindset, even if you're an individual contributor. And if you can do that, and I'm not saying usurp any of the power of the manager or leader. I'm saying is you need to begin thinking at the next level on day one. And if you can do that, then there'll be great opportunities.
Cool. All right.
I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Absolutely. Capri?
Okay. So you just talked a little bit about when you first talk to or when you first hire new people, what is one trait that you look for when you're hiring young adults? Because that is such a big part of coming of age, entering the workforce after school and whatnot.
Yeah. So we've actually done research on this, and my organization, I left the corporate world 16 years ago to start Magna Leadership Solutions, and we go help small to medium-sized organizations on a regular basis. And we've actually done some research with lots and lots of clients. I think the last research we did, we surveyed a little bit over 1,000 people. And there's this common theme, and it's not only our research, there's lots of research. Gallup and Forbes, Fortune also do similar kind of research types of things, but at a much larger scale. And there's this commonality of what organizations are looking for. It's just really, really simple. And these are in no particular order. They're all relatively close. The first thing is they want to know that you play nice with the team, that you can integrate with the team, that you can communicate, that you can listen, that you can integrate, you can adopt the company's culture. Right? That most people don't get fired because of their incompetence. Most people get fired because they can't integrate and they can't work with others. Right. So if that's a strength of yours, congratulations. If it's not a strength of yours, you need to get it at least to a baseline where you're able to do that. And the good news is there's a lot, particularly now with the internet, there's lots and lots of courses that you can take, or people that can help mentor you. So that's the first thing is to work well with the team. As part of that is you have to be a great communicator. You have to be able to listen and communicate very clearly back and forth. And then I think the last thing that you need is that you need to have this growth mindset. That you have to have the ability to think bigger than what you currently are and strive towards that. There's another one actually that was part of the research I just remembered is they want you, the companies have told us, organizations have told us, is that we're really looking for people that are really good critical thinkers and problem solvers. I think too many students come out of the university system, and I've taught in 6 different universities, so I know that this is not a strength unless you add it yourself as a professor, is they want you to be good, excuse me, critical thinkers and problem solvers. And too often, the education systems today give you kind of laundry lists. You go down these 10 steps, and voila, the problem solved falls out. And what they really should be teaching you is thinking out of the box, thinking in an environment where there isn't a rote list or methodology,
Right.
so that you can struggle a little bit. And if you get really good at that critical thinking and problem solving, you'll be incredibly valuable and pretty much probably employed for life.
It's so true.
So good to know.
True. It's really, 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 really so true. Thank you so much for this incredible wisdom that you're putting, because I think that, as you're right, these kids are so bombarded with so many things, especially when they're in the process of trying to get into college, even just the process, the senior year of the apps and the acceptance and everything else. Now getting into college, which now Capri in her second years through that first one, that was really a lot to learn, and now in the groove of the learning and what's your future. But these skills that you're talking about, as far as that critical thinking, problem solving, active listening, communication skills, putting those in with that education is so critical. Do you see that as a society, we're helping our young adults with these communication skills? How much of that is still relevant today in the way they're being taught?
Yeah, I think it's all relevant. I think we're getting slightly better at it. I don't think we've reached the point where we're great at it. And I think that's something that has to be stressed, right? Now, if you go into, you're going to be a communications major or something that has to deal with humans, you're probably going to get a little bit more of that. The thing that I found, coming out of the technical side, you get almost none of that, right? And even like in med school, my daughter got her doctorate in physical therapy, so she had to do a lot of the med school kind of stuff, and that was an area that they didn't stress as much as they really should have, because you're dealing with patients on a regular basis. So I would say we don't do a good enough job. We can do better, and I think if people take that to heart, the best way is, leadership is not a spectator sport, right? You have to go and do that, and you don't have to have a title as a leader. Everyone has the ability to lead, regardless of whether it's a designated title or not. And the best way to learn is by doing and failing. We say you want to fail forward fast, right? So you want to try it. The key is to get into a situation where it's not fatal, like where you're trying to lead and you're making a determination in that class. I'm going to lead in this class and I'm going to fail the class and I have to take it over and over again. That's not what the message is. The message is look for opportunities where you can fail in a way that you can take the learning from it, and where the failure is not fatal to your life or your career.
Let's talk about your book, Ready, Set, Get Hired, correct?
Yeah. Well, I have 2 books, right? So the first book, particularly, let's finish up on the leadership thing if I can.
Yes.
The first book that we did was called The Leader of Oz. We wrote that many years ago. It's still applicable today. We took the story of the Wizard of Oz and we wrote a story about this company in Kansas that gets whisked away and dropped into Silicon Valley, and you have the wicked VP from the East and the wicked VP from the West. It was so much fun to write. But we took all of myself and my business partner, Dr. Ali Lakhani, took all of the heavy academic stuff that we had learned through doing our doctoral dissertations, and we put it into a book that was fun to read, very, very practical. And if you want to kind of create this highly functional integrated team, you have all the methodologies in that book. So I highly recommend it. We actually just released it about 1.5 years ago on Audible. So if you don't want to read
Excellent.
it's about a 3-hour read. So that was the first book, and then the last book we released was called Ready, Set, Get Hired. And what we did is we have a method that I've coached actually several high school or college graduates who were looking for positions, but they were not, they got a position, a job, but not what they wanted for their career. And we created this process that uses LinkedIn about how to position yourself so that you can get noticed, and you can go find a job instead of waiting for the job to find you. And in the book, it gives you the whole process. It was actually done by one of my graduate students from Arizona State University. She got downsized and called me and said, "Hey, I got downsized. I know you can be a good coach and a mentor for this. Can you help me?" I said, "Well, I have this method that we use to get clients. I think you could use the same thing to get a job. I will mentor through the whole process with the understanding that you write the book when we're done. And if you do that, we're good." So she said, okay. She kind of she found her Nirvana job. She's a very senior person, so it took several months to do it. Didn't happen overnight. And then she
That's
wrote the book.
incredible. You helped her identify and find that, because that's a scary time.
It is, particularly when you got, kids and bills, and you're a
Yes.
single mom at the time. Yeah. So anyway, so it worked out really, really well. And so we've put all of the process and the scripts of what you actually have to say. So it's all prescriptive rather than descriptive, of what you can do to really find a job utilizing LinkedIn, and it will work.
Well, you have provided a copy of this. We've put it in the notes in the chat here, in the comments. You are allowing anybody to download the copy of this book that's a part of this podcast, right?
Yes, you can download Ready, Set, Get Hired. We call it the reviewer copy.
Yes.
And we created the reviewer's copy prior to its launch on Amazon. So if you can download it and read it, and if you have questions on it, you can send a note to me. I'm always glad to talk and help people, find the job of their dreams. And this will give you a really good head start.
That's a huge value. Capri, I mean, is it hard for you to already picture that, finding the dream job when you're knee deep in the middle of college? Or is this something that you're already talking about with your cohorts?
Well, yes, it's a little scary because I think that change can always be a little scary, even if it is exciting. But at the same time, I think back and I'm like, wow, I'm where future or like past Capri wanted to be. So like future Capri will also be able to accomplish those things type of things, because you can look back and see like, oh, I've already done this much for myself and all these other people have already done that much for themselves. So it's not scary, but I think that it's also very exciting.
Yeah, and my tip to you, Capri, as well as to anyone else listening, is don't wait till you graduate. Right, that's the key. Mm-hmm. Is that you want to start the process probably a year ahead of time. Go find out the companies or the type of industry that you want to be in. Make those connections with the individuals. Read anything that they post as far as articles, or whatever. Start writing yourself. Right, that's one of the things the tips you'll see in Ready, Set, Get Hired, is getting published and getting your ideas out there to demonstrate it. I mean, the last guy that I had coached, he was out of school for about a year. He was doing a position where he was a dispatcher, but he really wanted to get in supply chain. So we said, hey, so let's demonstrate your supply chain now, and let's write some articles and get you published. And when you send your resume out, at the bottom it says articles by, and then you can list all different articles, basically demonstrating. Most people don't even recognize how easy it is to write and get published these days.
Yes.
Yeah. So do that writing, because that's, one thing I know from when we work with different organizations doing hiring, having someone that has kind of all the checkoffs and is a published author, and they're writing about the kind of stuff that you're hiring them for, pulls you way up in the pile of resumes.
That's such great advice. And it's so true. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Thank you, because it is so true. And it gives that credibility and shows just where your mind is at and how you're ready for that position.
Yeah.
Excellent. Can
Yeah.
you speak with us a little bit about Magnum Leadership Solutions as well, and how you can be accessible?
Sure. Yeah. So our company is called Magna Leadership Solutions. You can find us on the web. If you do a search for us, generally we usually end up on the first page somewhere.
And the
Of
link is in the
Google.
chat.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy. Yeah. So what we do is we have what we call our Leading Forward Academy. It's a 6-month program. It's our mainstay of what we provide with myself and my partners, and it identifies all of the key areas that you need. It's only offered. We don't offer what we call open enrollment. It's only offered for intact teams or organizations that want to put their senior leaders through, or midline level leaders through. 6-month program. We do it virtually, and we also do it on site. It just depends, with regard to availability and what's desired by the client. And it covers all the main topics about behaviors, kind of working with different people, critical thinking, leadership, motivating, engaging, communication, understanding values, doing integration of systems thinking, all of those type of things. We bring them all together in a project based, and at the end of the six months, the students or the participants have worked on a project for the company. So it's not, we say we don't do training. Training is a sunk cost. We do investment, right? We're going to give you the tools. You're going to have to apply them. You're going to have to apply them to something the company's struggling with, so the company gets a return on their investment. And if you can do that, generally we found that pretty much almost 100% of our work is all repeat work. We've been doing this for a couple companies that are 6 or 7 years. Every year they just renew us, and we do their next batch of leaders, and it's fantastic.
Excellent.
Awesome. That's so great.
Capri, you have any last thoughts?
Oh, I learned so much. And honestly, it was so just great to see like that there is value in leadership, because I feel like so many times people are like, oh, like leadership this, leadership that, and use it as kind of a buzzword. But that the fact that it's like you can be a leader at any level. And what you said about servant leadership, I really enjoyed, because that's kind of a lot about what I know about. So it's really great to see that like I can actually use these skills that I've been taught and I'm learning to help me succeed in the future.
And Amy and Capri, can I give you one final tip?
Please.
That we do in our leadership academy, and it's for something to kind of challenge anyone listening, is that probably one of the biggest challenges that we see today is people are overwhelmed or overloaded with work, right? There's less people doing more work all the time, and you get to that point where you just have more, 50% more, whatever percentage more than you can do. And what we find is, as people get more and more proficient in whatever they're doing, they have a tendency to hold on to what they know that they can do well. And when you hold on to that, it doesn't give you that space to learn and grow. Mm-hmm. So as a leader, what we profess in our model, in the servant leadership model, is if you have something that could help develop someone else, and you're holding on to that, and you're not delegating it, or you're not working with them to be able to have them do it. They may not do it initially as good as you can. Ultimately, if they're going to have to do that, the best leaders say, hey, this is something that I'm holding on to that's keeping someone else from developing a leader. That's the only thing you have to think about in making a decision whether you keep it or delegate it. And the best leaders delegate it or partner with the individual. So one, they can build them as leaders, and second, it can free up the time for you to go do that next level. But most people feel really comfortable. Once they get comfortable, they want to do more and more of that. The problem is they will get stagnated.
Yes.
And once you maintain that mental mindset of, am I holding someone back by doing this myself? The answer is yes. The best leaders bite the bullet and delegate it.
So true. So true. Thank you so much. Incredible advice. What a huge value you've provided for us today, for Capri and myself both, we have learned so much from you. And I know that our audience has as well. Thank you for taking the time to bring all your wisdom and experience to us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity to share and to do it in a very casual way.
Capri, you want to bring us home?
Of course, you know it. Well, this has been such a great episode. I truly feel like I got a better look about how leadership can work for you and what skills that I need to develop just from talking in this short 30 minutes. But thank you so much, Dr. Kevin, for joining us today. And yes, everyone go take a look at his book, which he has so graciously shared with us, and tell us what you think about it. This has been the Education, Career, and Beyond podcast, and we'll see y'all next week.
All right, bye now.